Now, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the mechanical aspect of indirect work because it's a neat concept for sure that you could, work with someone in a time displaced way where you're not present in the same time or place, but you can still work with them virtually. And I mean, it's pretty obvious to me. Anyone who's done forum work or with email lists, basically there will be a posting, and then you can work with that. Basically, um, and it could be in the form of an editable document. This is a really classic example. You have a group document that you can edit. There's people are authorized to edit it or view it, and it goes like that. One time someone is in there editing something, and then they're adding more words or writing more there in the project that you're doing. And then 3 hours later, on the other side of the world, the other team member is doing their part. And that's because people have different schedules, they live in different places, but they share interests, right? And in that way, we can work together. And it seems really obvious. But there are levels to that, too, because how do you initially access an indirect work program? And I mean, if you're not talking to your coworkers, how do you get paid? Well, I haven't figured that out yet either myself. Well, I have a little bit. Starting to. And that's a real trick. I don't know if I'll talk about that. You just get a job, man, right? Nah, it's tricky. There's maybe you can't get a job because you've realized that working in a corporate environment destroys you, or you destroy them, more like it. And they don't like that. So then they kind of, hey, I'm not going to get into all that though, the illegal firings and all of the silly stuff. I'm going to try to keep this light and positive because that's what people like, apparently. And yeah, so you can have like a type of thing. The other thing is you can have like a website where that people that you're trying to work with will be funneled to. And I'm not really like a big funnel guy, but there are ways of ensuring that people will see your content, the demographics you want to see, or even a particular person, as it turns out. You can make that kind of Jimmy Jiver happen if you have the intel on that and you know how to kind of get their attention somehow. It's possible, and you can ensure that the parties that you want to work with. Now, the thing is, DJ Skull always told me it never turns out the way you expect. It never does. And that's a really good thing to take into account when you're doing indirect work. Ooh, that's some crusties right there, eh? And then it like clears up in this way. That's a real funny thing. That's some weirdness, as we say in the biz, the audio industry. And a way that I work indirectly in the audio industry is there are teams of engineers in the Pacific who really we don't share a lot of common language except for a bit of math, and I provide kind of like suggestions and designs, and then they kind of actuate them through a third party, and that's a different type of indirect work where you're working through a third party, and that's totally different. Oh, that's nasty sound. That's a nasty sound. Okay, we gotta fix this here. This is a problem. Is that better? It's a little bit better. I mean, it kind of sounds not that good. Valentina was right. It sounds like I'm recording this in a potato. I've even got this filter on there and stuff, and why am I so stupid? I don't know. Like, I'm supposed to be a professional audio engineer. My podcast sounds like junk. What's going on? Maybe I've been doing too much indirect work, not directly listening enough to the real situation. That's true. That can happen. You can get into these worlds where you're working on, you find yourself working more on the encryption than the actual work you need to do, for example, or the authentication, identification process. Because a lot of the time with indirect work, you'll have like a public depository where the materials can be accessed, but then they're encrypted, or they're only able to be accessed by authorized parties who have the credentials, but they're still stored publicly, basically. Like they're because you don't necessarily know who is going to have those credentials, I guess, is kind of part of the issue. That's part of the issue with people not talking to each other as much in the workplace now. It's okay. Like, I mean, I'm more of a communicator guy, direct, explicit. I deal well with explicit instruction, but I can deal with this indirect method too, and especially coming to learn how it works through like email lists and even through social media. Actually, I do a lot of sandboxing in social media, like kind of pretending to be a business. Some of it is real work too. But a lot of it is like sandboxing and kind of a goofy notion of what being an incorporated entity is. Um, yeah, and like there are all of these kind of domains where and depositories and places where data is stored. We call them data rooms a lot of the time. So you could be working indirectly with people where you have set up a data room. And there are a bunch of services, sites, and places that offer this kind of stuff now, a data room where, you kind of set it up, and then the other party will go in and they'll use the resources that are there. Another example of indirect work is even like applying for a government benefit or grant, for example, because the government sets it up there, and then you go online and then you fill out the form or whatever it is that you have to do. And that's indirectly working with the government. You're not really directly working with them. I'll tell you, directly working with the government is a trip, man, I'll tell you. No, it is. Like when they start, never mind, I won't talk about that. There's certain subjects that are off limits, and you can, like, message me or email me. I doubt you will, but you can message me or email me and say, what do you mean by directly working with the government? Because I do that sometimes too, where like I don't, I'm not saying I'm gonna get paid for this, but I say, oh, this has to happen, and usually it does, because it's not just me, right? There are always lots of actors, and people have similar observations for sure about a lot of issues. And a great example today is the Bank of Canada today had a public broadcast, a very rare public broadcast. Well, not that rare, but kind of rare. You don't hear about the central bank doing a television program that often. And they were taking open questions from the media. I listened to one, and Tiff was the boss over there. My boss, just kidding. My future boss, maybe. Who knows? I'm just kidding around in that way, but you never know. They do have, I should call them, actually, instead of doing this podcast. We do it on purpose. I mean, the jobless struggle rapper thing, it's more fun that way. I mean, life would be boring if you just got like a high paying white collar job right at a high school, college, or whatever, and like the old days. So we basically, what we do in the Illuminati, this is the Illuminati section, is we make life harder for everyone. We just make it miserably hard for everyone because it's better for the issues, if you know what I mean. And I'll end with that. And that's an example of working indirectly with the Illuminati, like watching this Bank of Canada question session and feeling like Tiff has expertly explained how we will avoid the throes of superinflation. We won't have it happen here. They're very well controlled. BOC till the end.